accounting adjustment. What are we going to do today? First of all, let's address session logistics. Caption available, and you can put your questions in the chat. And if we won't have time to answer the chat during the meeting, we're going to get back to you with those answers later on within a day or two. Also, the session will be recorded. So if you ever want to rewatch it or point someone else out to that recording, there will be a link going out, and these materials will remain available for everyone. All right, what are the objectives today? We're going to talk about payroll accounting adjustment functionality, what it is. I think some of you, maybe a lot of you already encountered that. Maybe you have questions or some concerns, and we want to hear that. We will review some complex scenarios. What do I need to do if I'm not adjusting the whole paycheck and I just need to pick and choose? We'll briefly talk about salary over the cap and cost share payroll accounting adjustment rules. And we'll try to fit all of that into this 57 minutes that we have remaining. So I'm going to go quickly through the deck because I want us to concentrate on the payroll accounting adjustments in the tenant so that you can see actually what happens in Workday. All right, so what is payroll accounting adjustment? This is payroll cost transfer. This is changing what has already happened in payroll, but only changing the payroll accounting side of that, and we'll talk about it in a minute. So we have a couple of roles that can initiate payroll accounting adjustment, and costing specialist, a lot of you, and then also payroll accountants. That's a small back office group that also has access to payroll accounting adjustments. Now, the access between UMCP and other universities are the access is slightly different because at College Park, we are running fringe rates. And as such, we don't need to adjust employer expense. And that's why your access doesn't even cover the employer expense, retirement, FICA, Medicare, so on and so forth. But at UMCS, UMAS, USG, and USMO, you are expected to move those costs alongside the labor. So if you're doing payroll accounting adjustment for non-UMCP university, always remember about the employer expense that you need to move with your labor. And we'll show that today in a tenant. Okay? So what are the payroll accounting considerations here? First of all, the main question, when can I start adjusting payroll? Literally, when the process completing payroll is done. Payroll shared services, payroll team closes pay period. And 1 minute after that, even before the settlement runs, that pay period is literally available to you all to create payroll accounting adjustments. How those adjustments post? So the accounting dates work in an interesting Workday way. If you adjust in a pay period that is in your current financial period, let's say we are right now in the end of April, April is still open. If you are adjusting an April pay period, the first one in April, the accounting date on that pay period will be the original accounting date. The one on that adjustment will hold the same accounting date as a pay period. Now, if you are in April and you are adjusting pay period in February, your accounting date on the adjustment will actually land in April. What happens if your adjustment is in progress and someone didn't approve your adjustment, and by that time the month has closed? You don't need to cancel or delete anything. Nothing happens in the system. When that person approves the adjustment that you created, it will simply land in the next open financial period on the first day. So let's say on Thursday, on Friday, April will be closed. If there are any payroll accounting adjustments in the system, they will land in May immediately when they are approved. A little bit of clarification of what you can and cannot adjust. So imagine moving on those trucks and you cannot go left or right. You are moving in a framework of what has happened in payroll. So if there were $5,000 of regular pay and $200 of allowance, and that was in payroll paid out to a worker in a position, you cannot change the earning code. You cannot replace regular pay by something else through the adjustment. You won't be able to change the amount, the total amount of what has been paid in payroll. And if inadvertently you have an employee in multiple jobs and the funds were paid in the wrong position, can happen, right? Pay input was done towards the wrong position. You won't be able to change that fact through payroll accounting adjustment. So think about payroll accounting adjustment as just an accounting reflection of what happened in payroll for certain earning codes in a certain position. The system will monitor that. The system will not let you go away from these original amounts, earnings, and positions. And good news for Workday, payroll accounting adjustment allows you to readjust multiple times the same paycheck. So you performed payroll accounting adjustment, then you figured out that it should have been adjusted differently. Unlike some other systems, Workday allows to endlessly, I hope not, but if you need, you can do multiple times the same pay periods, payroll accounting adjustments on them. And when you do those payroll accounting adjustments, what you will always see in your adjustment is the most current information for that paycheck. So if I'm making a payroll accounting adjustment for someone who's previously already been adjusted, I will see the latest current accounting information. Also, if someone adjustment is in progress, I won't be able to pick up that same pay period. The moment I would like to initiate that payroll accounting adjustment, the system will come back and let me know that there is an adjustment in progress. Until that adjustment is completed, I cannot do my adjustment. Quick start cheat sheet here. I'm not going to go through it in the PowerPoint because we're actually going to go through that in the Workday tenant. But just know that these quick steps are here for you in the deck, and we'll walk through them. All right, so what do we want to do with payroll accounting adjustments and what we want everyone not to do? So first of all, if you have relevant documentation, please attach it to the adjustment. It's not just for your approver, even though that is great too, if they will see additional information, but it's also good for you because we have so many tasks going on. And I know that sometimes people come to me with something that I've done 2 months ago, and I cannot remember why I arrived at those particular figures. So I know that you keep your documentation, you can attach it to your adjustment, you will be able to review it in the employee profile on that adjustment, and your approvers will have it too. Optional parameters on the first page, we're going to talk about it. I know that some people, because people actually ask those questions, they had issues with that. They would swiftly bypass the first page in the adjustment, and then they had to manually add everything on the second page, and they really didn't like that, right? So that's why we actually want people to always fill the first page, save your time. Utilize your comments, put an additional note for your approver. I know that you do that already. And in the adjustment, there is a functionality to review your totals, so we would like you to use that functionality, and I'll show it today. Now, sometimes what happens, you are submitting adjustment and it came back with an error and it said revise, right? And you don't know how to work around that error, and you just keep it in your inbox because you're busy with something else. Let me get to it later. Please do not let those errors marinate in your inbox or the new Workday My Tasks box. I personally cannot say that, so I still say it as inbox. So do not let it sit there forever, because the moment you submit the adjustment and it comes back to you with an error and it says revise, that means that the process already registered in the system. It's not like when you just start an adjustment and you change your mind and you cancel out. Here, you already submitted it, it has an error, so that pay period for an employee is blocked. And this error will be a blocker, not just for you, but for everyone else in the system. And we'll talk about it, how to resolve those errors. And also, do not change the budget date as it points to the original pay period entry. So when we adjust pay period, we are going to see that budget date, and it's actually an enterable field. And sometimes you might want to change that budget date if you adjust earnings for the grant that has closed and the pay period end, let's say, was March 15, but you adjust that pay period, you move the money out of the grant or you move it towards the grant, and you split whatever was on that pay period, then yes, you obviously, for the entries that you split and create to move the costs, you can enter the budget date that is required. But for the majority of the adjustments, you really don't need to touch budget dates, so just keep it there the way it is. Because when we look at those accounting lines, it lets us easily to understand what that budget date was, what that original budget date was. So if you, for example, change it to today's date, that will become meaningless because it's a previous pay period, but the budget date is pointing to budget date that doesn't belong there. What do you do with errors? You're going to get errors sometimes. So there would be some errors that will not allow your entry to be saved for later or submit. That's fine. Those usually are very surface errors. You will see them right away. Like, for example, you forgot to select an earning code for adjustment, and of course, the system is going to complain. You won't be able to save. And when you view details in that error, you will be able to quickly see what happens there and fix your adjustment. Sometimes the error pops up when you submitted your adjustment, and let's say a grant is outdated, and it didn't tell you anything while you were selecting the grant because the approval workflow actually triggered that validation and error. And now the system tells you the award line is closed, for example. So in this case, there will be a revise button available for you. You will be able to click into that and replace that grant by something else. But sometimes the issue is that you cannot really replace. You are going to adjust employee funds and put it into that grant. The system doesn't allow you to do that. What are you supposed to do? You want to get out of that adjustment, but you cannot cancel it because you already submitted that. So what do? There is no delete function, right? I mean, sometimes Workday surprises me with simplistic things not being there. So what you can do, you can remove everything from the adjustment, so it's totally blank, and just click submit. And that empty ghost adjustment will go somewhere in the system. It will hang at the employee record just to show that an empty adjustment was submitted. But what it will achieve for you, you will be able to get out of the situation where you have it in your box and you cannot do anything with that until you solve the situation. So sometimes when you start creating an adjustment, you didn't submit it yet, and you didn't save it, you want to delete it completely, that's where you just hit the cancel button and that's it. The adjustment will go away. So there are different situations there. All right, so let me just quickly stop sharing so that I could switch to a tenant and we'll start our presentation in the tenant. But before I do that, I want to look at the chat and see if we have there any questions. Okay, so yeah, I see these questions already have been answered. So let me just get to my tenant here. Okay. All right. So this is our training tenant. To remind everyone, I'm going to proxy as other people. I cannot do it in production. No one can do it in production. No one can proxy as you and do something on your behalf in production. That is not possible ever. So I'm going to use fictitious employees with the names that will tell you that these employees don't exist in the system. People like Snow White, Teddy Bear, and Lady Gaga. I hope we don't have employees with these names in the system and you won't think that these are real people. So Can someone quickly confirm that you can see Workday before I go forward with that?
Yes, Masha, we can see it.
Perfect. So there are a couple of ways to do payroll accounts in adjustment. For the majority of you who don't have access to payroll system, to payroll records, it's going to be through the task, create payroll accounts and adjustments. And that will be the first way to access employee record. I'll show you another way as well. So when you create payroll accounts and adjustments, it's going to ask for employee. And in this case, I'm going to enter Snow White, our first candidate for adjustment. And you see how immediately it filled with pay group and a company. So technically, it will put the latest information in that. And if your employee didn't change the pay groups, then you can just accept whatever is out there. But we have employees who were in hourly pay group, and they're also in faculty, and sometimes in both pay groups at the same time. So watch out for the pay group, right? You will have to select the pay group that that employee was in if they had multiple pay groups. Then let's say faculty and UMCP, pay group and company is there. I don't have anything against that. This employee just has been in one pay group. I get to my change reason. And there is not too much of selection here. So cost allocation correction, that's where you submitted a post-dated cost allocation in the system after the pay period has been completed, and you know that you need to do payroll accounts and adjustment. And administrative error, it's more like cost allocation was wrong, and now you're doing payroll accounts and adjustment. Actually, this reason 1 and 2, they are very similar, and they won't trigger any different reaction from the system. And you can also, if you need to explain what happened, you have comments for that. You can attach email, you can attach documents if you need. Pre-award cost transfer, we usually save this option for our grants team. They know when they use that. And when you see 04, it's payroll or stars adjustment, very clear, central use only. I don't know any sane person who would love to use central use only when they don't belong to central team. So just ignore it, you don't need it. So cost allocation correction, that's what I'm going to choose. Pay periods, what are the pay periods that are available for me for that employee? Every completed pay period that was posted without error by payroll team, so it's immediately going to be available for me. I'm going to select a particular pay period because I want to show you how the same employee can have different position in this payroll. So I'm going to select December 1st, December 14th, because Snow White has 2 jobs, and one job is overload and another job is her main position. So that is the pay period where she had that. Okay. So this is the call to action. Always fill optional parameters first page, because that is going to save you data entry. If you need to start removing entries on the next page, it's much easier to click delete, delete, delete than enter all these details one line by another. It's going to be very, very difficult to do it. So always take advantage. Even when you actually want to move amounts, you can kind of do a ballpark percentage and use this page so that in the next page, you'll have to do less work. So here we are. We selected that pay period. Click on that plus sign and select your position. So right away, we have non-teaching overload, that's 1, and assistant clinical professor, that's 2. And we remember, we won't be able to mix it up and start adjusting wrong items or wrong earnings for those positions. So I'm going to select non-teaching overload here. And pay component that is available to me, as you can see, is just the pay component that was actually paid in this position. I cannot select anything else here for Snow White. So cost and company, do I really need to fill that field? Well, no. If my cost and company is the same as my company, if this is not an adjustment for employee who was actually funded, let's say, in UMCP, but somehow funded from USMO grant or need to be funded from that, I don't need to touch cost and company, and you see that this is not a required field. Okay, what happens here? Everyone is asking the same question. Why Workday? What are those work tags? Is there any indication that this is how payroll was funded? Absolutely not. Ignore whatever you see in that field right out of the gate, because what Workday does, it posts for you employee organizational assignments. It's not an indication that that was how the payroll originally was funded. Those are just default batch of work tags. You will always see here a fund, cost center, balancing unit, and location. And you really don't need to do anything with these work tags. What you need to do, you need to select your driver work tag, and that driver work tag is going to drive all other work tags. Those work tags will change. So what I'm going to do here is, let's say I want to select UMCP uSource. I just select one because it will take forever. I'll just take any one right now. I'll take this uSource, just for demonstration purposes. So what happens there, the moment I put that uSource in, as we can see that uSource pulled related work tags. Its own cost center, the fund is the same, the higher education function code, and location is just the same Benjamin building, because location, we don't attach location to uSources or grants, so just let it be. In this situation, non-teaching overload, I want to take it at 100%. And then I'm also going to take the other position here. And my other position will be Assistant Clinical Professor Snow White. And the components available in this position going to be salary earned AP and salary accrued AP. So actually, I see in my access, because I access it as implementer, you see that earning code, salary accrued, you are not going to see it as cost and specialist, because this is a centrally funded earning code. What you would have seen in this particular record is just salary earned, and this is what you can adjust. The other code is excluded. You would never see that. So here in this case, let's just pretend that I want to do that same uSource. And I want to put it to 100% as well. Now I entered my position, my pay components, my work tags. In both cases, I ignored whatever was there. I just entered my driver work tag. I indicated 100% because here 100% is two different positions. Let's see if the system is going to be okay with that. And the system is. So why I was able to indicate more than 100%? Because I was adjusting two positions. If I was just adjusting one position, the system wouldn't let me do it. So here I actually see everything. These are my original current journal lines that system already has in for me. And here my adjustments. Everything is done for me. I don't need to enter anything anymore. Obviously, it's a simplistic adjustment. We'll go through something way more sophisticated than this. But you can see that if that was what I was doing, all I need to do, I would click update amounts, and it would tell me my current total amount versus my proposed total amount. That's what it is, and I could submit it. Now, let's see, what if I only wanted to move $100 of teaching overload, okay? And I wanted to actually leave the 1875 and grants people. I'm looking at you because I know that you're picking and choosing exactly like that, right? Because sometimes you do this super convoluted calculations and you need to hit it to a cent. So what if I just wanted to move $100? I would add a line and I would change this to 100, and I would change this to $18. for a purpose. I need to change it to 1875, but I'll do 18. And I would select that same position, non-teaching overload, with that same component, non-teaching overload. And you know what? Because I'm so picky, I would actually leave that 1875. Well, I'm doing 18 for a good reason, to show you something. I would leave it in my previous use source because I'm just moving $100. So the system let me enter another row, and as long as my accounts are going to be, my amounts going to balance, I can slice and dice and enter rows and delete rows on both sides, current and future, without a problem. So how do I know where I am? First of all, update amounts, because now I'm doing things here manually. You see that? Proposed total amount now is less than current total amount. So Houston, we have a problem, right? Difference 75 cents. If I wanted to see, let's, sometimes you're making those super convoluted adjustments. This is not good enough. You actually want to see what's going on. So I would do salary earned, update amounts. Well, here it shows that everything is okay. Percent of proposed, that's the weighted amount of this salary in the adjustment. 97.28 is what the salary takes in the entire adjustment, right? So we see the difference is 0. Okay, doing all right here. And then non-teaching overload, let's see what's going on. Hey, difference 75. So, and percent of proposed, again, this is a percent of this teaching overload and the adjustment. Now let's pretend that I ignored that completely. Now I'm trying to submit, and Workday doesn't really like that. Thank God there is some limitation here. So I'm going to enter 1875. Okay. And this is how I'm going to submit that. I will not submit now for a good reason, because I want to show you what would have happened if I didn't choose all of this on the first page. So let me just, for a moment, to go back to the questions. Okay, so Lydia, great question. Why does the PAA not have an automatic journal number for reference? For that same reason that it doesn't have an option for you to select what work tags you want to adjust. Employee has 10 grants, I want to adjust one. This is Workday trying to not to introduce too much of granularity and sophistication. Because, I used to be, before in my previous life, I used to design labor distribution system. And the principle is the more you allow for the client to do, the more issues you will have as a development vendor. And that's why Workday just saving themselves time and not giving you those extra reasons. It's very annoying, but this is the way it is, unfortunately. So there is no rhyme or reason why they didn't offer us those simplistic criteria to enter, but they don't. Okay. Let's see what we have. All right. So do you have a questionnaire to complete if the PA is not related to grants? Nope, you don't. If you still want to put some comments in, you can. If you still want to adjust some documentation, you are more than welcome. There is no an obligatory questionnaire. Next question, why can't we do a PA for an employee once they have transferred to another unit? All right, so that's a security question, right? They transfer to another unit, you don't own those employee records anymore, you cannot do it. I know it's very inconvenient, but Workday, again, for a very good reason of protecting themselves, they don't give that, oh, Mary had access to this employee last month and we will let her adjust the pay period for last month. They are doing a very simplistic approach. You lost that employee, Mary, he's now reporting to Brittany, and Brittany is the one. So if you need, I know it's inconvenient, but if you need to process an adjustment, now you need to go to Brittany and ask her to do it. Okay. Everything else. Okay. Can you show us one with the CI who has retirement subsidy and salary? Mary, unfortunately, I didn't prepare that record, but that would be the same principle. You would be choosing two different earnings, and if you need to put them into the same work tag, put them to the same grant, to the same use source. You would do it on the same line. But if you needed to adjust them differently, you would be doing the exact same thing I did with different positions. You would be choosing earning on one line and then another earning on another line, and they would be 100% adjusted to the different work tags. So let me for a second cancel out of here. Oh yeah, that's a great question, Lisa. So for UMCP, you don't need to transfer the fringe and you won't have access to that because we pull our actual fringe, it goes to the pool, we deal with this later. The fringe rate actually follows the labor, and thankfully you don't need to do anything. So this is UMCP adjustment. Snow White is UMCP. You don't need to do anything with her. Okay, so let me show you what would have happened if I didn't use the first page. I would still do it actually, and I'll show you some other way to do it for people who have access, like payroll and payroll accountants. So let me get to Snow White again. I didn't submit her adjustment. Okay, so if I want to adjust her pay, I'm going to, what I could do, I could go to results, and in those results, I could do that if I have access to pay result, payroll accounts and adjustment. And what it would do, and this is for payroll accountants, it would right away select my pay periods, employee, pay group, company, and all I would need to do is to do a change reason. All right. So let's say I did it this way from the pay period. So Sherelle will have access to that, Neil, Jeff, everyone who is payroll accountant title. This is how, if you have a fancy payroll accounts and adjustment, you can start it from the pay period, from those related actions, and go straight into that, save time. So let's say if I didn't do anything here, if I didn't select anything, and I would just click OK, can I do it? Yeah, I can do it. And it comes here and nothing, right? Here there is nothing. So what do I do if I actually, now I need to enter everything here. So what I could do, earnings, again, salary earned AP, you wouldn't see the other one. I would refresh journal lines, okay? But now the problem is that I need to enter everything line by line here again. And if I have multiple pay period or multiple earnings, multiple pay components, I would need to do all this manual entry. So that's basically, if you think about super simplistic adjustment, maybe when you just enter one line, it doesn't really matter to you where you do it, first page or second page. But if you think I'm adjusting 3 pay periods and I'm doing all that, please use your optional parameters. I'm actually always using them because it's easier. All right, let me cancel out of here and actually address the question of fringe, and that fringe for non-UMCP employee. So I will now start proxying. And one other thing, I'm not showing you the actual approval workflow today because approval workflow is the real people in the system. And as the real people in the system, they have real items in their boxes, and we cannot show any real items having employee names and maybe some information. So that's why I'm not showing you the approvals, but approvals are basically all the approvers will see, and I will just mention that. And if you are an approver, you already saw it, you are going to see the entire adjustment, not just your part, and you are able to see documentation, you are able to see the history. If any of the previous approvers denied, you would see that they denied, not denied, but sent back to the initiator. You would see all that history of the adjustment. So let me start proxying, and I'll proxy as Cheryl Marshall. Let's see. So I will proxy as Cheryl Marshall, and I'll proxy as her because I want to get to the record of Lady Gaga. So I will just do Lady Gaga here. And when I enter that record, let's see. So Cheryl actually has payroll results access for Lady Gaga. So what she can do, and if you have this access, you are more than welcome to do the same, right? What she can do, she can go to a particular period that she wants to adjust, and she can click on these actions and go into pay calculation and do payroll accounting adjustment right there. And that will populate all this information for Cheryl right away. And you can see that everything is here for that pay period. At least the initial parameters are there. So I would say administrative error. And then what Cheryl needs to do, okay, position will default because Lady Gaga has just one position. Pay components, now earnings, she has just one. But then when we get to deductions, we have all of this. If all of this is supposed to move, we need to select all of those employer expense. How we do it? Control A and space bar. Please don't go clicking one by one. Save your clicks. Control A, space bar will select all of that for you. As you can see, I selected all of that on one line because my point is I'm transferring all of that to the same view source, and I'm going to select my distribution percent, 100%. If that's not 100 per line, per position, pay component combination, it won't let you to submit your adjustment. You need to do 100% here. And then when I select all of this, and I will go into, let me see, UMAS US, source. I don't want to do grant right now, but I will show you the grant as well for another employee teddy bear. All right, so I'll just use Drama Society. Feels good for Wednesday. Okay, so I'm going to click OK and Workday thinks a little bit because it prepares everything. By the way, I haven't mentioned that, but I hope you know, and you will know now if you didn't, you can do multiple pay periods. If you need to adjust 5, you don't need to send 5 adjustments and do all this work 5 times. Select 5 pay periods. And especially, it's going to be lovely if they're all change the same way. Obviously, with grants, it's a little bit more of complexity because grants, they often do it per month. They adjust pay periods in a different way. They use calculators. We will not go into those weeds today, but you can do all of those adjustments in the same adjustment. Okay, attachment. I could select files and attach. I will not do it now, but I could do that. And look at what I have here. I actually have all of my current journal lines, 44 items. Sorry, Workday is glitching. I scrolled too fast. Okay. And I have 14 items in proposed adjustments. Imagine entering it all manually. It's going to be really difficult. So let's say, and here you see there are some items coming from payroll because those were retro entries. You will see those negative items. When you see those are retro entries. So you actually need to go through them sometimes and see what is this that you want to adjust? Do you want to adjust or not? Is it the previous pay period? Look at your budget dates as well, because budget dates here will be defaulting to what was actually going on in the pay period. So you will see all that. At this point, if I suddenly realize that everything is supposed to move except for a certain pay component, I could be searching by that pay component. Let's say I'm moving everything, but I don't want to move. That's a bad example. Let's say I don't want to move retirement pension subsidy. I realized that I don't want to move that. So I'm going to filter by that. And it's going to come up with 4 lines. And guess what? I'm just going to click them all away, removing one by one. Retirement subsidy. But then what do I need to do? I remove filter here so that it doesn't look like that. Okay, so takes its time. Now I need to go to my proposed lines and to my pay component. Where is my retirement subsidy? Right there. Filter it out. Okay, and remove. So if you missed something, and actually it shows me There was no previous remove index to insert row. Workday does that sometimes. So what they do in this case, you try to save for later. It actually removed the row and it's saved. And now I can go back to revise. And when I get into that, so what it tells you, if you see unknown error and you already like 20 minutes into adjustment, you see that error and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything that I'm doing, save for later. And it will save the situation. And most likely this thing will go away. So let's see if Workday removed it or not. Retirement subsidy. Yeah, it removed that. It just gave me this issue, right? It provided me with an error. So save for later will save you when absolutely illogical error comes up, not telling you anything, just some gibberish. Save for later will save your work. And also, if you are doing very convoluted adjustment, I advise you to save for later and then immediately retrieve and start working on it again. So at least you have something to come back to. Remember, the moment you save for later, this is actually registers for that employee. Let's check. If I go back to, let me cancel out of here. Okay. And if I open Lady Gaga record right now, let's see, what are we going to do? Is there any payroll accounting adjustment for her? So view worker history. I actually didn't submit it yet, so maybe there is not. No, actually it is already, right? I didn't even submit it. I saved for later. And immediately payroll accounting adjustment is there. So if you work on something and you save for later and there is another costing specialist or someone else that decides to do something with that employee, you already blocked this payroll accounting adjustment. But that also works the other way around, right? Because you could be in a situation when you started payroll accounting adjustment and went on vacation. So again, no one will be able to do a thing. Okay, I see that Jeff is handling the comments right now.
Hey, Masha.
Yeah.
Can you talk about hold on one second. Can you talk about identical adjustments work, how to combine identical adjustments work?
So sometimes, first of all, this combine identical adjustments, it happens when you have, as a result of your adjustment, the lines that go to the same combinations of earning code, position, and work tags. And then the system asks you to combine identical adjustments so that it will all go to the same accounting line. That usually happens when you slice and dice your adjustment. So if you get, and I'm sometimes completely oblivious to if I need to do it or not, but the system will actually produce an error saying combine identical adjustments. That means that you can do it. Okay. All right. I'll try, Kim, I'll try to go slower. Now, addition to PA, do I need to process a costing allocation? Is PA related to the costing allocation in a change job? The answer is no, PA is not related to costing allocation. PA is not related to it. I mean, it's related to it in the sense that if you processed and retrodated costing allocation, you actually need to go and do payroll accounting adjustment too, but none of them calls on each other. These are disjoint processes, and the system, actually, Workday is promising to come up with a tool that will allow you, when you put post-dated costing allocation, call automatically payroll accounting adjustment. This is how I say, this is not a bottle of wine yet. They just say, hey, you know, we are going to do it one day, so maybe it will come up. Why is that deductions need to be transferred if we are transferring the whole salary expense? Betty, I can hear you. Other systems don't do it. It's silly, but this is how Workday is built. So I cannot do anything here. About that, we need to select deductions. Workday, unlike other systems that were built 50 years ago and give you the option how to process your fringe, Workday doesn't give you that option. UMCP, we don't include it because we have fringe rates. Everyone else we include. All right, so Tiffany, yeah, sometimes we do individual training when we have initiator who has an extremely convoluted adjustment and they don't know how to proceed with that. So send us an email, Jeff and I, and we could probably spend 15 minutes with you and just walk you through the initiation. And the last but not least, I think we're done with the questions for now. So let me stop proxy. We have 13 minutes. I want to show you teddy bear's adjustment. So I'll stop proxy and I'll actually go in. I'll start proxy as myself with different access. So start proxy, not an implementer. I have multiple accesses here in the system because that one will lead to questionnaire. All right, so now I'm proxying as myself, but with less access. So I want to do a payroll accounting adjustment for teddy bear. And again, I could enter from payroll results or search bar. Let's say administrative error. Now I have a particular pay period that I have in mind, and that would be January 26th to February 8th. Okay. And this is a situation when teddy bear is split funded in this period 5 different ways. And I actually need to pick and choose because I'm going to take 1 grant from teddy bear and split teddy bear towards that 1 grant from his current adjustment and split it 2 different ways. Michelle, yes, UMCP only needs to select earnings, and that's what I'm talking about. UMCP, just earnings, everyone else, earnings and deductions. I just see it on my screen. Okay, so what can I do here? Teddy bear has different funding sources. I don't want to select all of them. So first of all, pay component, teddy bear is UMCP, just salary earned, that's all he has. And I'm going to put that towards a U source. So I'm going to put that towards U source for MCP. Let me choose a U source. And that U source will be, let me just select, I'll just select this one. Okay. And I will put it 50%. And then I'm also going to select that same thing. And here I'm going to use a grant. So here I am splitting the entire pay of teddy bear by the U source and a grant. 50-50. I'm going to click OK. And I am transferred to the next page. Now, the problem is that I actually didn't mean to split the entire pay of teddy bear 50-50. All I wanted is to take 1 grant, which was this one, 5411, and split that further 50% between a grant and a U source. So my 50% is just for me initial parameters just to get to this page. And this is actually, this piece is based on real training that I provided to a couple of times to different costing specialists because they were in the same situation. They thought that they need to manually enter everything online, but my point is bring up everything and delete. It will be easier for you. You'll make less mistakes too. So in this case, as we can see, 5 items, 5 current lines. Teddy bear is split funded 5 different ways. I'm going to remove everything here. All right. Everything that doesn't pertain. Payroll accounting adjustment is like just thread carefully. Don't make quick moves because the system reacts with those errors sometimes if you move too quickly. All right, so I removed everything except for that 1 grant that I needed. Now, 786.88, unlike other people, I cannot do anything without my calculator. So I'm taking 786 88, and I'm dividing it by 2.
If they're undergrads, no.
Okay. So I get
Yeah, just to-
393.44. All I need to do right now, because I want to move whatever is in that grant, and I want to move it 50%, leave it in the grant, and 50% move elsewhere. 393.44. Let me enter that. So I just use the first page as a crutch to get to the second page, not to enter anything, because I like deleting much more than entering. It's quicker. Now, let's get to update amounts. Guess what? 786.88, difference 0. I think we're good. So that was all I did, right? I didn't need to enter anything. I will click submit. And all right, one of them was a grant, right? Complete questionnaire. So as you can see, everything is required. 4 questions that are required. So I would enter all of them. And right now I'm just saying test. It doesn't really matter. Because I need to submit. And sometimes, you know, you see if question is not required, you might bypass it. Here you need to enter something, enter all 4 of them just for the grant. And then you click submit. And off it went to grant manager and use-source manager and all of that. Now, what do we see on the employee record if we have access to? Let's get to Teddy Bear. So first of all, let me stop proxy, even though it's quite a good access, but maybe not good enough. So I'll get to Teddy Bear again. So how do we see the results of our adjustments? Where do we see those? Obviously, in the reports, I think it's report 969 or other reports that you have access to, it has a special journal source that is called Payroll Accounting Adjustment. Then I'll get to my pay or overview. In the overview, if you have access to that, view worker history by category, you get to payroll. And in payroll, you see payroll accounting adjustments for Teddy Bear. One of them was canceled. That was canceled because I did it with wrong access and it's stuck with the questionnaire. So I canceled that, but the record is in the system forever. Then the one that I successfully completed to split fund out Teddy Bear 5 different ways, and the one that is in progress. So I won't be able to do payroll accounting adjustment again. But this is where you see the whole history. If Teddy Bear would have more, you would have more of those entries. Now, and you can go back to the process, review it, who was approving, what are the documents, where is the journal? So if you have access to this, and you have different access in the system, but if you have access to this and you go to Teddy Bear, pay period, and other accounting, and this is where everything else is for Teddy Bear. So you will see payroll accounting adjustment, and you can look at the journal. And that's the previous payroll accounting adjustment that I did. So it's much bigger, but it shows you the journal. Ledger accounts in your adjustment, there will never be any liability. It's always expense in, expense out, right? So it will never involve employee deductions, net pay situations. It's strictly expense in and out and nothing else. So that's where I'm able to see that. The other thing that I see is that my Teddy Bear had very interesting journal situation. It's not fringe benefit adjustment, but it's reversal and adjustment, because what the system does, the system assumes that fringe number, fringe rate can change. So when you do a payroll accounting adjustment, it reverses the original fringe and recalculates and posts it again. So when you have a situation when your employee was incorrectly reclassed, you can actually go do payroll accounting adjustment in and out, which will cancel the previous fringe and calculate the new fringe amount for that pay period. That's just a little tip for you. Sometimes you want to do it, right? You figured out employee paid wrong rate, and how do I adjust that? I want to charge that to my grant. That's how you do it. All right, so this actually concludes the presentation. I hope that was useful for you today. Let me stop sharing. Okay. All right, so let me look at the questions. Which work tag is meant to be the driver work tag in this case? It's not the account the employee was paid. Well, it also the account that employee was paid on, and another account if you are splitting the original driver into two different accounts. If we selected multiple pay periods, row 1 work tag driver that the employee was paid on prior to changing the cost and allocation. So actually, you don't need to match the number of lines that you have between the original and the current. If you selected multiple pay periods, that would have multiple pay periods in your adjustment. And unfortunately, I didn't cover that today. I just didn't have enough time. But we can always, if you have issue sharing with multiple pay periods, you can open inquiry with payroll services. You can let us know and we'll walk you through that. Slide deck will be available to everyone. Yes. And I think those were all the questions.
Masha, there was one more that came through.
Yeah.
Addition to PAA, do I need to process a costing allocation? Is the PAA related to the costing allocation in the change job?
So I think, Tatiana, I already answered that, but I will rehash it one more time. So if you are doing a PAA for an employee, in many cases, it means that employee funding should have been different. I would still do a costing allocation sometimes, even if it's just a retro costing allocation that should be changed, because think about if employee gets retro pay later on, if you didn't fix the costing, they could have received amounts and be costed incorrectly again. Now, when you're doing a post-dated costing allocation, then again, the judgment is yours. If you are doing a post-dated costing that maybe employee has been costed incorrectly in a previous pay period and you actually want to pull payroll accounting adjustment and fix that employee. All right, everyone, thank you so much.